Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we are joined by musician, podcaster, public speaker, fitness expert, and author of Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody, Zuby himself. Zuby, thank you so much for joining us at The Right View. I've been wanting to sit down with you for quite some time. I think your popularity keeps growing with everything you do. I think you have a very fascinating story and sort of how you ended up becoming a known person online, etc. But maybe give our listeners and our viewers a little background on you, all the accolades that you've accomplished. How did you start and get to this point where you are now?
Sure thing. Well, my name is Zuby. As you've said, I'm an independent rapper, author, and podcast host. I do a lot of things. I was born in the UK. I grew up in the Middle East in Saudi Arabia. I come from a family that is originally from Nigeria. And when I was in Saudi Arabia, I also went to an American school up until 5th grade. So you can probably hear in my accent that I don't sound like the typical Englishman, which confuses a whole lot of people. So I did really well in school. I went to Oxford University where I studied computer science. And that's also where I got into rapping. I started rapping when I was in my first year of university. And I actually released my first album, Commercial Underground, when I was in my second year of university. And then after I graduated, I did my music full time for a year. Then I joined the corporate world, worked as a management consultant for 3 years while doing my music stuff on the side. And then after 3 years of that, I decided to take a massive plunge and become a full-time artist. So I've now been full-time self-employed for the past almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in November. And since then, I've put out 6 albums, 3 EPs, wrote and released my first book, done hundreds of podcasts, hundreds of shows, and stuff continues to grow. And I've done it all independently as well.
Wow. And how old are you, by the way?
I'm 34.
Okay, 34, you've accomplished so much. I think it's amazing. By the way, little known fact about me, some people might know this, but I fancy myself a pretty good rapper. If you were at my wedding in 2014 to my husband, Eric, what people would know is that we had no karaoke set up. I just grabbed a mic and just went for it. And it's something that I'm kind of known for. I'm just throwing it out there, Zuby, in case you need like a backup situation or an opening act one day. I am available. I'm just going to say it.
I'm always open. I just got to hear the skills and we'll go.
I know. I got to try. Look, you won't take me at my word. You'll make me prove it. I appreciate that. But what kind of your story, though, you were studying computer science at Oxford. I mean, that's really impressive. And then you just decided, I'm going to release a rap album. I'm going to start. I mean, that's kind of a departure. And I don't think many people would see that coming with that background. Were you always into music? Was this always something that you wanted to do? Or did you just suddenly wake up one day and you were like, I've got to do this. I feel the urge.
Yeah, it's a fair question. So actually, when I was a little kid, I wasn't really into music much at all as a listener. I did play piano as a kid. I played piano maybe from the age of 5 up until I was about 13. And
nice.
I played trombone for a little while.
Well.
Okay. FYI. Yeah, I do wish I continued it all the way through, to be honest. But when I was in my teenage years, I got into like going to the gym and playing rugby and other stuff. So I kind of dropped it. But I became a huge hip hop fan when I was 12, 13 years old, really got into a whole bunch of different artists. But I'd never actually tried writing and creating my own stuff until I was 18 when I was in university. And I picked it up pretty quickly, got good at it, and just started out with my inner circle, friends, family, playing stuff to other students at the university and stuff like that. And then one of my friends had a basic recording setup in his dorm room. So I'd go in there, download beats off the internet, record tracks. And it just started to grow and get some traction. I got some really positive reviews in some of the local music magazines and stuff like that. I started doing gigs around the city, started selling my CDs, and just built up my name from there. Once I'd built up a bit of a name in the city of Oxford, both within the university and outside of it, then I started also traveling to London and doing shows there, promoting my music, and eventually taking that all over the UK and beyond. So it's been a really long, hard grind. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that I've been doing what I do in some capacity for 15 years now. So in 2018, 2019, way more people started to get to know me through various online channels. But that was more than a decade into everything I've been doing. And so over the past 2 years, it's really sort of spiked upwards, and things just continue to grow. And I've added extra strings to the bow beyond just being a musician. So a lot of people appreciate what I do for the various aspects and facets of it, whether it's the music, the podcasting, the fitness stuff, whatever it is, as long as I can offer something of value to people and they appreciate it and it helps their life in some way, then it all fits my agenda.
Love that. I love that attitude. Who were you influenced by? What musical artists, what rappers, who influenced you back when you were growing up?
Early on, I'd say LL Cool J, Kanye West, Jay-Z, Nas, Tech Nine, Eminem, quite a few different artists, I listen to a whole spectrum of stuff. I listen to quite a lot of foreign rap as well. So I listen to British and American rap, but I also listen to like French rap and a little bit of Polish rap and Czech rap and stuff from all over, because I just like all the different sounds. I'm just a real hip hop head. And then I guess my music and my general attitude is also influenced by a lot of stuff outside of the world of hip hop and even outside the world of music itself. I have a song in my song Perseverance. I call myself the Jordan Peterson of rap. So like there's kind of some philosophical influence in there as well. And just based on my own life, my own perspective on things, and just my own unique background. I come from a very different perspective to a lot of rappers and a lot of different musicians in general. So the way I see the world, and I think what I can offer both within my music and outside of it, is just a little bit different to what people may be used to. And some people love that. Some people don't really like that, but it's who I am. It's what I do. I just keep it real in the truest sense.
Well, we know about some people loving it and some people not loving it for sure in our family. I can tell you that. But you really kind of are a jack of all trades. You've released several albums. You have a successful podcast. You have a book on fitness. What's the fitness situation? Because again, I feel like you and I could really hang out a lot. I also am really into fitness. Is that something that's been kind of a lifelong thing? What is it that you kind of focus on fitness wise?
Yeah, so I got into fitness in my mid-teens. I started training when I was 15. So I was actually an overweight kid. People look at me now and they think, "Oh, I bet this guy's just got amazing genetics and he's always been in shape, whatever." It's like, no. I weigh less now than I did 20 years ago.
Oh, wow. Good for you. Do you know, that's right, how a lot of people start. And I think that's really inspirational to so many people, because there are people that are listening to this, watching this, that are every day saying, you know what, today I should start doing it, but it's too much. That's awesome that you weighed more 20 years ago than you do now. That's incredible. And so you started, did it just click with you one day, or was it kind of like a grind to get to where you are?
Yeah, so I actually really started lifting because I used to play rugby. I played rugby in school. It was my primary sport once I started going to school in the UK. So if you're playing rugby, it's best to be the person who's dishing out the damage rather than receiving it. Yeah. So I just wanted to get more jacked and in better shape and stronger so that I'd be a better rugby player. And I fell in love with, I just started loving lifting weights in itself and just getting stronger and seeing my body develop and everything like that. And then over the course of a long period of time, lots of trial and error in terms of various training techniques and going through different diet cycles and stuff like that. You learn what works, you learn what doesn't, you learn what's nonsense, what makes sense. And so with my book, Strong Advice, I really wanted to just write a simple and concise guide, particularly for people who are beginners or intermediates, to help them know how to reach their goals, whether they're trying to build muscle, burn fat, get stronger, gain weight, lose weight, whatever their goal is. I wanted to just lay it out pure and simple without tons of jargon and tons of nonsense. It's a very simple, concise book. And that's a lot of the power in it. I mean, it's sold thousands of copies now. It's been sold in, I think, about 70 different countries now, which is amazing for an independent release. Yeah. And I'm all about self-improvement. And I'm also about encouraging other people to self-improve. The through line through everything I do is about, honestly, it's about inspiration. It's trying to encourage people to be their best mentally, physically, spiritually, relationships, whatever it is. Like, everyone has so much capacity and so much potential, and your body is a key part of that. Yeah. And I think that in the modern era we live in, particularly in the West, a lot of people don't recognize that in the way that they really should. I mean, one of the most mind-blowing things over the past year and a half, actually, for me, has been this would have been the sort of ideal opportunity to push a true message of health, right? Especially
Yeah,
given the
absolutely.
circumstances of what we've been going through, right? Like encourage people. Actually, you know what? For the past several decades, we've been in this malaise where people have just been getting fatter every year, and everyone, people just gaining weight. People aren't exercising. People are sedentary. People are eating a lot of junk, whether in the UK or the US or Europe, whatever it is. And so this would have been an amazing and an opportune time to really push a message of overall holistic health, fitness, and well-being. And as we often do in our modern society, it's like people instead just opted for the path of least resistance,
Yes.
just throw a mask on and you're okay.
Exactly what I was going to say is that I feel like people want whatever is easiest and whatever is quickest. Whether or not it actually works long term on a lot of fronts, I don't think matters to so many people. Somehow we've been conditioned, sadly, to go down that path. And I think what people find once they especially start down a journey of fitness, like you're talking about, like I've done for most of my life, you find that, you can't get the results you want if you don't put the time and effort in anything in life. By the way, in a job, in fitness, in a relationship, you've got to put the effort and the time in, and then you'll reap the rewards. But you're right. It would have been an incredible time during COVID for people to say, let's start focusing instead of, looking for just a vaccine or looking for more ways to lock people down. Maybe we should start talking about the fact that healthy people who are fit, are not dying from COVID. It is the least healthy people in our society, and obviously people with underlying health conditions. How do we get more people on the healthy path? But of course, that wouldn't happen. And we could talk about how the drug companies pay a lot of money to get the vaccines out there, et cetera. But you're right, it would have been an amazing time. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that I just realized, something else in common, Zuby. Do you know that when I went to college, I went to North Carolina State University, I was on a club rugby team. Okay.
Oh, really?
You and I literally, why aren't we hanging out? Why aren't we best friends? I don't understand. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I haven't even thought about playing rugby in years. And actually, if you tried to get me to play right now, I don't honestly know if I'd remember all of it. But I was the person what's the person they lift up in the scrum? Or wait, when they catch the ball, what is that?
In the lineouts.
Yes.
In the lineouts. It can be various positions who get lifted up.
Well, I see. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm talking about now.
Where were you positioned in the scrum? Were you in the scrum to begin with?
I think I was. Gosh, I have to remember. All I remember is whenever the ball got thrown in, they lifted me up and I caught it. It's a club team. Again,
okay. This
is a very loose interpretation of what actual rugby is, especially in America. I don't really know if we can get down in America with rugby. But again, just another thing. So when we actually meet in person, we're going to play the piano. I'm going to try out to be your backup rap vocalist in some capacity. And maybe you can remind me how to play rugby. I think it's a fair trade if you want my honest opinion.
We can make it happen. We can make it happen.
Oh my gosh. Well, the thing that I think caught so many people's eye about you, and you really started gaining so much popularity, is when, Zuby, you started giving your opinions online. And now we know, I mean, people get really crazy about things online. Did you see yourself as a political activist, in past, or was this something kind of new? Did other people give you that label when you started sharing your opinions? How did this all start happening?
Sure. So I don't consider myself a political activist at all. In fact,
you're just a common sense thinker, I feel like, right?
Yeah, very much so. And I feel like my hand was sort of forced into the social commentary lane just because the world, everything around me was entering such a bizarre period of time where I felt like my voice needed to be added to the conversation. I wasn't really seeing my voice and my perspectives on things being well represented. And certain things were going down a path which I considered to be concerning, right? And I think that if you see society or where you're living, your country, whatever it is, going down what you feel is a dark path or a concerning path, then there is a moral and an ethical obligation to say something. And I had a platform. I already had tens of thousands of followers. I'm a musician. I had some fans and a voice. And so I just started lending my voice and sharing some of my personal thoughts, the private conversations I'd be having with my friends and family. I thought, you know what? I'm going to voice a little bit of this on Twitter or when I started my podcast through the podcast.
By the way, that's very brave to do, because a lot of us feel comfortable actually saying these things amongst our own friends. Obviously, for me, I can't escape it. We know what my last name is. We know how I feel, right? I mean, like, I'm not hiding anything from anyone.
Yeah.
But for somebody, especially like yourself, somebody that did have a platform, that was a musician, and you have so many different followers out there, you don't know how they feel. I think in this day and age, my gosh, we know you could get canceled for things much smaller. That's pretty brave that you did that you came out and you were just like, I'm going to tell you what I think. Were you ever worried that you get such, like a bad reaction from this? Or did you? I guess you have from some people, right?
Firstly, I mean, the bravery topic is an interesting one, because a lot of people do call me brave. And in one sense, I appreciate it. But on another, I don't feel like what I do is particularly brave, right? I'm just like, hey, I just talk. I just say things, right? Yeah. I talk on interviews and podcasts and in my music. I rap. I just share my thoughts, right? To me, bravery is, going into a war and having bullets flying at you and knowing you could be facing death, or, running into a burning building to save somebody, or I don't know. There's stuff that, puts your life at risk. To me, I'm like, okay, people who are doing that are brave. I'm like, man, I'm just saying words and making them rhyme sometimes and making them not rhyme sometimes. So for me, I wasn't concerned about that stuff. Part of that is, I think, maybe just my personality. I'm just not I'm not emotionally sensitive at all, to be honest with you. Not in a bad sense,
you have
but
to be that way. I feel like these days.
Yeah, you grow a tough skin, and as a rapper, I'd already had a decade of people telling me, man, Zuby, you get the praise and you get the criticism, right? You get people like, man, you're my favorite rapper. I love what you do. I love this song. I love that. You have other people like, man, this is the worst rapper in the world. This guy's trash. This Oxford boy, he should stop rapping. Whatever. I've heard it all before, right? I've heard it all before in real life, let alone online. So I think by the time I started expressing my opinions online, I'd already sort of grown that crocodile skin and that armor, so that there's nothing anyone can kind of say that's going to make me feel, oh no, I feel sad now. It's like, whatever. I'm sure there's hundreds of people screaming at me on social media right now as we're recording this, and I don't care. It's fine, Me
too.
And ultimately, I think in the wider context of everything, as you know, so many people are feeling silenced, right? People are feeling scared. People are self-censoring, etc. And this is in the so-called freest countries in the world. And that is part of why it's important to speak up, because this self-censorship is going to carry on and get worse and worse and worse. And I don't want to join in that. It's like, no, okay, if something needs to be said, then it needs to be said, and I'm going to say it if I think that it's right and it's correct, or I'm knowledgeable about the particular subject. Then let me lend my voice to this, right? The crazy people have no problem speaking up, right? There's people pushing all sorts of crazy, nonsensical ideas. I mean, what was the thing that blew me up, right? It was me identifying as a woman and breaking the British women's deadlift and bench press records, right? How did we reach a?
I want you to tell that story. I was going to ask you about this, because. This is what you did with that, though. It was so smart the way you did it, because it just shows how nonsensical so much of this stuff is that is really being pushed by the mainstream media outlets, by so many folks out there. And you take a step back and you think, gosh, even 10 years ago, if somebody had suggested this stuff, it would be crazy. Somehow now people are just like, that's fine. Tell people at home what you did, because this is awesome.
Yeah, sure. So this is over 2 years ago now. So in February 2019, I posted a 9-second video on my Twitter account of me deadlifting 230 kilos, which is 500 and something pounds. And I just wrote a comment on it saying, I keep hearing about how there's no biological strength difference between men and women in 2019. So watch me destroy the British women's deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. So I just put this out there. I had like 18,000 Twitter followers at the time. And I thought, okay, this is going to get a few laughs and a few retweets. And it went bonkers. This video blew up within 24 hours. It had hit 1 million views. It was getting people from all over the world were talking about it in the world of sports, the world of politics, the world of activism, the feminist world. All of these different people with different ideas were just enamored by this video. And oh my gosh, who's this guy? What's going on? This is crazy. And the video kind of speaks for itself on what that commentary was. But touching on what we were saying before, how have we reached this stage, right? How have we? If I show that video to my family back home in Nigeria, they won't even understand it. They'll be like, "What do you mean you identified as a woman?" Like, what? I don't. They wouldn't see why it's funny because you need the cultural context.
Right.
If you showed that to someone in 2008, they would have been like, why is this funny? I don't understand it, right? You need the cultural context. And that shows how far some of these ideas have gone. We're here over 2 years after that for multiple years having an entire conversation about whether or not biological males should be competing with biological females in pro sports. Something we've known the answer to for millennia, really.
Right. Since the beginning of time. It's been pretty clear. And Zuby, it pains me to say that. Because I will tell you, I have one brother. I don't have any other siblings. My brother is younger than I am. So there was a small window of time, and we both grew up playing like every sport under the sun. Small window of time where I could beat my brother in certain sports. And then very quickly, he started beating the mess out of me. I mean, like just going hard past me. And I hate to admit it, but it is it's just insane to think that you can just all of a sudden identify with a male body as a woman and you should be able to compete in these sports. I'm sorry. There are so many young women, my daughter who is not even 2 yet, who are going to come up in this world and want their opportunity. And what if we subscribe to this idea and actually gave it any sort of merit? It would just destroy women's sports. And I think it is crazy. It's absolutely insane. It pains me to say it, but you're right. There is no way that men and women can compete on a level playing field. It just doesn't work with sports, unfortunately. Now, I could play people in Jeopardy all day and I might beat you. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it was such a great video. And by the way, the fact that you did it in 2019, it was almost at the very beginning of this stuff before people were really talking about it. Has your family in Nigeria, do they, I mean, has it kind of reached them now? Are they seeing like how crazy all this stuff is getting? What do they think of stuff?
That's a great question. I mean, I think people who get a lot of view of what's happening in the West, whether it's in the UK, USA, Canada, whatever, they're pretty socially aware of some of these various conversations and issues that are popping up here. But to people who are not, I mean, oftentimes you hear people saying the world is going crazy. And really, when people say that, I'm like, no, the West is going crazy. It's not the whole world, right?
That's right.
It's like if you take some of these ideas to most parts of Africa, Asia, the Middle East, even Eastern Europe, South America, they're just like, what are you talking about?
Doesn't it make you think, like, are we just, think about how lucky we are, especially in a place like America, that like that is the big concern is like, do you know what I mean? Like, do we just need to give people more to do? Sometimes I think that like maybe these people need hobbies, that they're coming up with this kind of crazy stuff. They need something else to do. Maybe it speaks to how successful a society we have been in many ways, that this is like the big problem of the day, you know, like when this is your biggest issue and it's not just like survival or housing or food or whatever it might be, like it is in a lot of the world, you know, that maybe it speaks to something positive, but somehow we're turning it into something that's really does seem so crazy. I think, I don't know, maybe we just need to give people more stuff to do. We'll see.
I think it's a sign of a decadent society, I believe.
Yes.
You know, where people are really struggling and dealing with basic human needs, you don't have time for this nonsense. You don't have time to be inventing pronouns and arguing over how many genders there are. And, you know, the crazy thing about it, though, is regardless of someone's political orientation, I mean, there are problems in our countries that are worth dealing with and resolving.
Absolutely.
So it's also frustrating to me because it's also a massive distraction, right? Yeah. So for all the time that is spent debating, you know, gender pronouns for multiple years, it's like, well, there's some real issues out there. There are still hundreds of thousands, if not, there's still millions of homeless people. There's
Right.
still, child trafficking and sex trafficking going on. There's still actual elements of human slavery still going on. There's a whole bunch of issues which we could be dealing with and talking about,
Right.
but the steam gets taken out of those to deal with the nonsense. And I think whilst there's a funny side to all of it, which my tweet obviously chimed in on, there's also a sad side where it's like,
Yeah.
come on, guys, can we actually deal with something that's important?
Yeah, that impacts people's lives for sure. I
Mhm.
forgot to ask you your pronouns at the beginning, Zuby. I'm sorry. No, I'm just
Well,
when we get there on this show, it's really over. It's just done. Oh my gosh. Well, I want to ask you this because I feel like this is a question that I really always want to hear from people when they come on the show about what do you think is the best part of America and what do you think is the biggest threat to the future of America?
Wow. Okay. And this is a good question because I'm not an American either.
I know.
So
I'm curious
I
to get your
have
perspective on this.
Yeah, sure thing. I think the best thing about America is the concept of the country, actually. Right. So
Okay.
America is one of the, if not the only country in the world, which is very much founded upon an idea and principles, which
Mhm.
it hasn't always lived up to. And it's taken a while for those rights and ideas and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights to go out to across every citizen in the country. But the notion that it's very much an idea and it's a country founded on this idea, it's not founded on a specific ethnicity like most countries actually are, or like just a
Mhm.
particular, so people speaking a particular language or just from this part of the world. It's not, it doesn't have the same, it's a very new country as well,
Yeah.
which makes it very exciting. And I think people often forget that I say that the USA is as far as countries go, it's like a teenager, right? So I think that's why it's so exciting and there's so much opportunity and there's all these ups and downs and it can be a little bit crazy
A lot
sometimes,
of
but
mood
it's also
swings. A lot
a
of
lot
mood
of mood
swings.
swings, right? But if you look at the history of other countries, it's like, man, stuff goes so far back. So I think
Yeah.
that's the coolest thing about the USA is that it's very much founded upon these principles of uh, freedom and individuality and liberty and equality amongst all people and free markets and entrepreneurship. All of those concepts are very much embedded in the American culture and the psyche of a lot of Americans. I mean, if you travel the world a lot, you'll see that that's quite unique. Even in Europe, people don't have that same freedom, liberty mindset, right? It's much more in America, it's believed that your rights come from God or from natural law,
Yeah.
and the government is there to not infringe upon them and to protect them. Whereas if you speak to most British people or even most Europeans or most people around the world, the concept is that your rights come from the government, right? Your
Right.
rights are gifts from the government, and they can also just take them away. It changes the whole relationship, the whole dynamic. It's even why concepts such as the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, if you talk to most people in the UK about them, they think it's kind of crazy that that's a thing. Or you speak to most people in Europe, they think, wow, Second Amendment, it's crazy, just ban guns, and they don't really understand that. And I think with me having had a foot in both cultures and multiple cultures, I understand that. So to me, that's a bit of a long answer, but I think that's the best thing actually about the USA. And I think it's absolutely unique in the entire world in that sense.
Yeah.
The biggest threat to the USA, or the biggest concern actually, is the domestic undermining of those values. I think a lot of people in the US do not understand and appreciate actually how unique and special and important that core foundation is. I think they get so obsessed with trying to right historical wrongs in whatever way they perceive, or being so hypercritical of their own country and its flaws or perceived flaws that they don't really have that level of gratitude to be just like, oh, actually we've got something good here, let's not ruin it. Like let's not tear it all down, right? You hear a lot of people like, we need to tear the whole thing down, and it's that to me is very it's ingracious, and it's also just it's stupid, right? It's like
really
it's a really
stupid.
bad
Yes.
idea. And you can see this, right? When you see, I mean, right now, Cubans are protesting,
Right.
right? You saw last year when people in Hong Kong were protesting. What flag were they waving?
That's right. The
Right?
American flag. That's the
There you
one.
go, right?
That's
Meanwhile,
right.
people in the USA are kneeling for the flag or burning it, or saying that it represents racism, so on and so forth. So I think that, yeah, that a big threat to the US is the increasing notion that the whole USA is founded on bad principles, and it's a bad idea, and we need to just delete it and rebuild this in our own special utopian way. And that to me is a great threat. I don't think it's any external threat like it may have been in the past. I think it's
Right.
actually internal, and all throughout the academic system and some of the elements of politics and the media, et cetera. There's a weird strain of anti-Americanism within America itself, which I think is a genuine threat.
Yeah. By the way, loved your perspective on both of those
Thank
things.
you.
And you're so right though. I mean, look, you have lived in so many different places. And I'm sure your time in those places has lended itself to your answer. The fact that you have experienced other cultures, other societies, other countries, the people who are out there championing this idea that America is a horrible country, and as you just said, we have to tear it down and start from scratch, probably have never been out of this country, Zuby. They probably have never experienced any other cultures, gone anywhere else in the world, because I can tell you, I have been very lucky to travel to various countries around the world. And every time I get back to the United States of America, I think to myself every time without fail, it doesn't matter where. I just think, wow, what an incredible place America is. I'm so happy to be back here. I'm so grateful that I get to live in this country, that this is where I grew up. And I grew up knowing, I think, how lucky we were to be Americans. But you're right, it's really frightening to see the way that it seems like an entire generation is being indoctrinated with the idea that this country is bad, that this country is awful, that they do not respect it, they do not respect our flag. It's something that weighs heavily on me. It's something that Eric and I, my husband, take into consideration for our children, who right now are only 1 and 3. But we think about, how will they be educated? What will they learn in school? Where should they be in school? Because it has a big impact on the way that you see not only this country, but I think the way this country exists in the world in a very, very big way. So very interesting to get your take on that. Listen, before I let you go, I want to ask for all of our viewers, all of our listeners, where can we see you? Tell us how to follow you. What do you have in the works? Something coming up that we can see or hear?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to my website, teamzuby.com, you can check out all of my music, my book.
A lot of gear there too.
A lot of gear there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got my new album, Word of Zuby, which is available exclusively right now on my website, but it'll be out on the wider platforms, iTunes, Spotify, etc., on the 13th of August. That's coming. I'm actually coming out to the USA very soon. I'll be in the USA for the next couple of months.
Okay.
So you're going to be seeing me appearing on a lot of big podcasts and a lot of big shows.
Awesome.
And yeah, you can find me on all social media at Zuby Music, Zuby Music. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all at Zuby Music.
All right. Well, I want to encourage everybody to follow Zuby. I'm certainly keeping up with you, and maybe we'll do a part 2 where you and I are doing music, rugby, like whatever else the day brings. We'll see what happens. So, Zuby, I want to say thanks to you for joining us right here on The Right View. And as always, to everybody at home, thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.